but I just want to bring in Jonathan Reynolds, who's the Secretary of State for Business and Trade. Hello to you, Mr Reynolds. Thanks for joining us. You've been looking at the pictures overnight. Let's start with the hurricane, should we? What's your reaction to what's been happening overnight?
Well, these are clearly incredibly distressing images, and your heart goes out to the people affected by them. We're not unfamiliar with extreme weather events in the United Kingdom, but clearly what we're seeing here is something of a magnitude and scale which is very significant indeed, and thinking about all the people caught up in that.
Is on. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now, Kay, sorry.
Good, sorry about that. I was asking why you've got a high vis on.
Yes, I am in Burtley, in Tyne and Wear. I'm at one of the cooperative group's distribution centres. They're an example of a great business in this country who invest in their staff, and it's the kind of business we want to highlight as we introduce our plan to make work pay. So a substantial increase in the rights of working people in this country, more protections for them, more protections against insecurity, but also balancing work with other parts of people's lives. So one of our key promises at the election being delivered in under 100 days.
OK. You want to talk to us as well about employment rights, don't you? What are your plans as far as that's concerned?
Absolutely. So our employment bill that we are presenting to Parliament today, the start of the parliamentary process, it is about that greater security, that balance of work with other responsibilities, tilting the balance towards the best employers like the cooperative group here in Burtley. And specifically, it extends sick pay to a much larger group of workers. It gives them protection against unfair dismissal. It brings into scope things like parental leave and paternity leave for a greater group of workers. Many businesses already do this, so it's a level playing field in that regard. But it's making sure people understand that their rights will increase under this Labour government, and that we have worked with business to make sure what we're doing is fair, proportionate and balanced, and in the interest of everyone across the economy.
OK, what do you say to those businesses who say that it's going to negatively impact recruitment within their business?
Well, look, I can absolutely reassure them about that, because we've worked so closely with business and with unions as part of this process. So, for instance, at the minute, there are 9 million British workers who are not protected against unfair dismissal because they haven't worked for their present employer for more than 2 years. We are going to change that. They will have that right on day one. But we will also put into place probationary periods by which the process of fair dismissal is a lighter touch than it is for the rest of your employment. So there'll be a recognition that sometimes it doesn't work out. There's an easier process needed at the start of that employment contract. So you'll get more rights, but we're very sensitive, particularly for smaller businesses, of the need to recruit with confidence. We've listened, we've adapted the plans accordingly as part of that. So I can reassure people this is fair, balanced, does increase people's rights, but reassures them on that hiring point in particular.
I wondered if I'm sure you saw the sanctions story that Ed Conway did when it comes to Russia, and people like Jaguar and other high-end vehicles that are made here are transported to a third-party country, and for some unknown reason they're finding themselves in Russia, being driven across the border when that's clearly against the rules when it comes to sanctions against Russia. I did speak to one of your colleagues at the time saying that you were going to look at that again and try to tighten those loopholes. Where are we with that?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, I keep a very close eye on sanctions against Russia as part of our trade policy. We have sanctioned the overwhelming number of Russian products and services to make sure we are doing exactly what we need to do to reduce their ability to wage war in Ukraine. Specifically on the issue of luxury vehicles and the wider need to enforce sanctions against Russia in terms of third countries, we are proceeding with setting up something called the Office of Trade Sanctions. It's going to be a new body that specifically is able to better tackle issues like this. I'll be able to announce some plans to Parliament on that, I hope, fairly soon. But I can promise you, particularly in relation to Russia and what is happening in Ukraine, the government takes this exceptionally seriously and will always look to clamp down on any circumvention of the rules and sanctions that we put in place.
OK, here comes the Taylor Swift question. It seems that everybody in the Cabinet went to see her at least once. Were you Billy No Mates, or did you go as well?
I didn't go and see Taylor Swift. My idea of a good time is being at this distribution centre here in Burtley, Kay. But as ever, you know, when ministers or anyone is asked to attend something and they do, they will disclose that in the usual way, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm sure. The Home Office is saying suggestions that discussions on security and public safety could be linked to attendance at concerts shows a fundamental failure to understand the seriousness of the security context after the terror plot in Vienna and in the days following the violent disorder in the UK linked to the Southport attack at a Taylor Swift dance event. I think that's a little bit of a stretch from the Home Office. I wonder why the Home Secretary didn't declare that she went until yesterday.
Well, I understand that the tickets were actually supplied to her partner, and she did seek guidance on this and was advised as the right way to do that. But as they weren't given to her, she followed the guidance that was given. And specifically on the police escort point, those are operational decisions for the police, and I think they're absolutely right to take the security situation seriously. We've seen in this country, terrible attacks on venues, particularly the Manchester Arena one, relevant to my constituency in particular. So I would always back the police on making those operational decisions, which is what they do. That doesn't come to politicians.
Yeah, my question was, why did she decide to declare it yesterday?
But I understand she specifically sought guidance on this point. The tickets had gone to her partner. She was the plus one in this situation, so she followed the advice that she was given in relation to that.
She knows what the deal is. I mean, she's been in politics a very long time. Could it be that she was on the front page of the Sun newspaper yesterday highlighting the fact that she was in some way involved in the security decision-making around Taylor Swift? We covered it yesterday on the telly, and she thought, you know what, I better declare that because those pesky journalists are going to find out that I went.
No, I can say that would not have been how she would have approached that issue. As ever in these situations, you seek guidance. If you were not the recipient of the hospitality in this case, you would have had a very specific set of advice around that, and I know she would have always approached that in the proper fashion.
Why didn't you go?
Well, I've been pretty busy, to be honest, Kay, as have my colleagues. But look, you do get invited to a whole range of things as a shadow minister, as a minister.
And I'm sure they think, Dad had the opportunity to see Taylor Swift and he didn't take us.
Well, I feel you're now mocking me for that, but no, I mean, look, I get invited to a whole range of things. The vast majority of colleagues are the same. You can't always make them or don't always want to go to things. I don't really want to have to be able to describe why I would or wouldn't want to go to any particular event, but of course where you are invited to things in an official capacity as a government minister or as a shadow minister in some cases, that's transparent, that's declared, as are every meeting that we have as Secretaries of State.
Optics is my favourite word at the moment. Can you accept and acknowledge at least that all of these freebies that seem to be landing on the cabinet room table at the moment are not good for your first 100 days in office?
Well, look, what governments are judged on is whether they deliver upon their promises. What I'm announcing today on our biggest upgrade of workers' rights in a generation is exactly the things, I think, by which people will judge a government. Ministers, shadow ministers, have always been invited to events. Many of the things that have been covered, many things that I have been at when I was a shadow Secretary of State, I would just stress you're sometimes, in fact, almost always there alongside the government ministers at the time that you were shadowing. So that is a part of it. But look, the success or failure of any government is, does it deliver on its promises? Does it make people better off? I'm absolutely certain and know, first of all, this government is delivering on its promises. That's why I can make these announcements today, and the people will be better off under this Labour government, and that's ultimately what they will decide our success or otherwise accordingly.
OK, let me try this one on you. The Institute for Fiscal Studies suggests that your party will need to raise taxes by £25 billion to keep spending rising with national income, I should say. You've outlined £9 billion worth of tax rises in your manifesto. Where's the other £16 billion coming from?
Well, look, the IFS is right to say the inheritance of this new government is unenviable, and they're right to say that the sums of the previous government didn't add up. Now, Kay, I'm not going to announce or preempt a budget 20 days out on television or on the morning, but look, the Chancellor has made absolutely clear not only this will be a budget for growth, but the prerequisite of that is a switch to being responsible with the public finances in a way the previous government wasn't, and also doing things like making sure there's capital investment for the future, for that long-term growth that we need, rather than raiding that money to pay for day-to-day spending. So I've got absolute confidence in the Chancellor, even though the situation is very challenging, to deliver on our objectives and fundamentally produce a level of responsibility, a level of investment, a level of seriousness when it comes to budgets and the public finances that has been completely lacking under the previous Conservative government years. We have got tax rises, we've got ways to raise revenue to deliver on those promises, but fundamentally this will be a budget for growth, and you'll be able to see over the rest of this month the kind of investments from business that are going to be made on the back of that new and much more serious approach.
OK, come the 30th of October, you're not going to tell me the detail, but is it fair to say that pensioners will have to hide behind the sofa wrapped in a blanket?
Look, this is a government that is going to make everybody better off, specifically for pensioners. We already have the commitment to the triple lock. That's a guarantee that pensioners will be better off this year, next year, the year after that. It's a significant pledge from the new government. So it will make people better off. So people should be reassured from commitments like that. But yes, it is a challenging situation, but we are serious on delivering on our objectives, which is an economy that works better for everyone, better growth, better investment, and making sure everyone benefits from that. And that is part of the employment rights package that we're announcing today.
OK, good to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Kay.